Now we're going to talk to Harry Khachatrian up in Toronto. Haven't talked to him for a few weeks. He's at the Daily Wire, also a college student, not majoring in women's studies, getting one of those techie degrees in, I think it's electrical engineering. And we're going to start off by talking about the Google Manifesto, which I guess you know a little bit more about, being a somewhat technical guy. But Harry, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Adam. Always a pleasure to be on. So, as you alluded to, the big thing in the news these days, at least with non kind of super political stuff, is this Google story. And I suppose you can say someone who finds himself in a bad situation now, a Google employee, has shared what he kind of compiled as what's been called a memo with regards to some of Google's policies and kind of broader ideologies that encompass the sort of higher up staff of the company, particularly with regards to things like diversity quotas and the way they sort of their kind of global worldview on how specific groups should be represented in Google's workforce. And I suppose anyone who's sort of even at the slightest politically read up kind of understands how the climate at Google is overtly left-wing, and for the most part, everyone there holds the opinion that there's really no difference between men and women, and it's ridiculous to suggest that men more generally are interested in industries like technology.
Well, I just want to point out one thing, though. I mean, Google is not made of men on average versus women on average. It's not even whether the average male is better at math and very high-tech, extremely sophisticated stuff. It's who has more outliers, maybe a couple standard deviations higher than the median. And are there more of those at the male side or female? Because, women may be just as good, but it doesn't matter if you got, say, 620 on your math SAT, which is better than average. It matters whether you got 800 out of 800 on it. And that's who gets the jobs as engineers at Google.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And really a lot of what is no one touched on is the fact that men and women are different. And it's not that there aren't women who can be successful or who are successful in tech. It's that on average, men are just more interested in the field. And as you mentioned, I am studying engineering. I can tell you from my personal experience, like a first-year lecture, for example, this was a few years ago, for a first-year lecture in electrical engineering and this is a university that has quite a large number of international students. It's not like kind of the local school in Toronto. University of Toronto has a large first-year entrance to people from Asia, from Europe, from the United States, and I would say out of 90 people in my class, there was maybe at most like 9 or 8 women.
One thing I saw was the number of females who are getting the engineering jobs in Silicon Valley is pretty much exactly the same as the percentage of females who are majoring at the higher, getting the degrees in engineering around the world is actually pretty proportional.
Yeah, that's 100% true. And the fact is that it's not like these universities are denying women entrance. On the contrary, they are. There's evidence to support the fact that there's actual quotas at universities where if a man and a woman or a boy and a girl apply for the same engineering degree at Stanford or whatever, and they have the same grades, they would take the girl because they want to show that they have more women in STEM or whatnot. So
right.
There's absolutely no way to suggest that there is some higher force keeping women out of tech. The simple truth is that they're not as interested. And this is what the employee at Google was referring to, and the fact that he was kind of saying that the people who, the higher up individuals at Google would do well to sort of not deny these truths and not kind of ostracize people who maybe disagree with them, to be less hostile towards differing viewpoints. And I would encourage everyone to read his memo because there's not a single line there that was meant to be inflammatory. It was all very kind of logically reasoned, and very kind of neutrally put forth, and he provided sources and everything. So it's not like he wrote like an Ann Coulter type column where he was sort of, he was trying to start a fiery debate.
By the way, we love Ann Coulter. Don't get me wrong. But yes, I know what you mean.
She is. I will say she is, I think, my favorite political writer. I love reading her because, and just because, she is very sarcastic, and I love the way she does it. But, this guy wasn't sarcastic. He wasn't, trying to, try to cause any emotion. All he wanted to do was, to logically lay down his opinions. And that's exactly what he did. And nonetheless, the media is one thing to look at. There's an excellent piece from Ray Payton, I think, at the Federalist, where she compiled an excellent list of news organizations that completely misrepresented this gentleman's memo, and they called it like an anti-diversity manifesto, and all kinds of slanderous nonsense. ABC News is there, CNN, of course, The Atlantic, Forbes.
But even worse than that, though, it's so disingenuous. You know who really bothers me? Sheryl Sandberg over at Facebook has posted about it. And it's just, I find her so disingenuous. And she was 2 years ahead of me in college, and we had mutual friends. I don't think I knew her too well. But, she's passing herself as the representative of all women. Her brother, who was in my year, I was somewhat friendly with him after college, is a neurosurgeon. Her dad was a doctor. She's trying to make it seem as if she's the representative of all women. By the way, her younger sister, I don't know what her younger sister's doing now, was 2 years behind me. She's got the smartest Ashkenazi Jewish genes. I forget what kind of doctor. Maybe her dad's an ophthalmologist. And to portray herself as typical of all women, it's just as disingenuous to me. And I really don't like her. I had no feelings about her until she was famous. I like her brother, my interaction with him. But it's so disingenuous to me. Now she's talking about how diversity is so important. It's like, you don't even believe your own bullshit, Cheryl. You know it. And you know what? She also was so distinguished because of her brain at Harvard. That's why Larry Summers took her under her wing. And the irony of that, because Larry Summers basically had to resign at Harvard for pointing out the differences in the outliers of, for men and women. That's why that cost him his job as president of Harvard. So it's just so funny to me. It's just, you can't make this stuff up.
I agree with you completely. And I think the other point is that a lot of people on the left jumping to Google's defense on this are putting on their freedom of association hats. And people on the left do this kind of all the time. When someone, when a company, when private enterprise fires someone for specific views, instantly Democrats and liberals are huge defenders of freedom of association.
Oh, yeah.
Let's pretend for a second that, and this point was brought up on your previous segment as well, of course, that if any company had fired someone for holding what we consider kind of mainstream liberal views, whether it would be something like coming out in support of, let's say, same-sex marriage, or even, as you pointed out, something far less, I guess, controversial. Let's say they were simply voicing their support for the Michael Brown anniversary.
Right. Where it's clear-cut that he was not the victim of police violence that was not unprovoked. I mean, the court said that. Eric Holder said that. But you better respect 100%. That opinion if you want to honor the victim, Michael Brown, on his birthday. Yeah. That's clear-cut.
Or it's just another example. Let's say someone wears a Che Guevara T-shirt to work on a casual Friday and they get fired, which I think is, fully warranted, 100%. I think there's no difference between wearing a swastika to work and wearing a Che Guevara shirt.
Hey, did you see my other article today at the Gateway Pundit? They're reclaiming the swastika. Did you see that? I mean, I didn't do the original research, but I didn't analyze it.
I did.
Okay, so that it wasn't a coincidence.
Yeah, I got a lot of fun out of that one. So, just quickly back to this one. Can you imagine someone gets laid off of work for wearing a Che Guevara shirt? How many people on the left will be jumping to the company's defense saying, it's fully their right as a private enterprise to fire people? So, again, the hypocrisy is indeed on display. I think going forward, one interesting point raised in your previous segment was how many people will sort of see alternatives to Silicon Valley if they want to work kind of high up in the tech industry. And, I think that that is an interesting point. Another one is, I guess, how many new companies might even start in Silicon Valley as people who kind of oppose Google's or companies like Google, the sort of authoritarian stronghold that exists at the top. Because there's plenty of bright people coming out of top Ivy League schools who I'm sure aren't social justice warriors.
Right.
So who knows? Perhaps this will sort of ignite more competition and people who are sort of, because even in the ranks of Google, I'm told that there's people who were very much in support of this individual. There's like screenshots of conversations and whatnot, people who are not hacked. So, who knows? Maybe some people might actually leave firms like Google and do their own thing.
Yeah, and maybe get bought out by Google in the process, but at least they'll have a certain freedom until then. And I'm not joking about that. The other thing is, Jack Posobiec, I think, was the one who originally found this out, or at least he published it or tweeted it yesterday. What a shock that the Tsarina, as I call her, of diversity, humanity, and everything great over at Google was an active Hillary Clinton supporter. I mean, is it even worth talking about? I think this isn't the first instance that we found companies who we sort of long suspected to be kind of tightly wound with liberals. I remember even a sort of similar story. This was maybe like a year ago or so. There was like a recorded kind of private conversation between Mark Zuckerberg and Angela Merkel, where she was like, privately asking him to censor Facebook comments and pages with regards to, which she, I guess, alluded to, her refugee policies and things that she found sort of disagreeable. I think this is sort of an unfortunate consequence of corporatism and, Democrats who on one hand kind of play this hand that they're for the little guy and the billionaire is screwing you, and, at the same time they're happily taking money and working with these large corporations like Facebook and Google. Yeah, absolutely. And it reminds me, not to dwell on Sheryl Sandberg, but how she was talking about how amazing Hillary Clinton was with her kids. And this is someone who has the power to say what gets promoted and what gets blocked on Facebook. All right, wanted to see if you wanted to talk about any of the other stories I was talking about before with Anton.
You mentioned the T-shirt thing. That was with swastika.
Yeah.
We can just, I guess, quickly run through that one. This is almost to a level of satire. So there was a company, I believe this was an American firm.
No, European.
A T-shirt. It was a European. Okay. This was a European T-shirt company who basically someone at the company decided that they were going to rebrand the fascist symbol, the swastika, to reclaim its Indian roots as a symbol for peace from the Buddhist religion. And they literally sold T-shirts with, and interestingly, whenever you see these kind of really old Buddhist symbols, the swastika on them is not on an angle, if you know what I mean. It's sort of straight. And apparently this company, I don't know what kind of marketing team or product control, I don't know how any of this works, but, they had T-shirts with the exact same kind of angled swastika that you have on the Nazi flags and their emblems. They had that printed on T-shirts, except they were, they had this LGBT rainbow pattern on them, and the text just said, like, peace and love.
Yeah. Oh, boy. And the swastika was on an angle, by the way, in the way they sold it. They did not do it the way when the old Indian way. Well, what is interesting is if you know a little bit about the background of some of the people in the SS, it's not 100% contradictory. We'll leave it at that. There is some interesting information about some of the practices of the early members of the SS. They may have died in the Night of the Long Knives, but we're not talking about necessarily a family research council type stuff.
The only thing that they left out of those T-shirts is they could have, as well had small, little SS letters on the side of the cloth, because that would have really completed the picture. Apparently they were trying to paint there.
That's true. And you know what? No, it's weird. I have seen an image of, what looks really weird. I can't say it looked that horrible if you're being completely objective about it. It's not a bad design. But no, what just doesn't work is when they try to do the rainbow flag on the Confederate, or what we think of as the Confederate flag. It just is too hard to do. There's too much going on when you have the stars, the bars, and then you try to put a rainbow on it. Just visually, it does not work, for the record.
Yeah, okay.
Any thoughts on the story that's ongoing about the English model, I guess more of what they call a glamour model, meaning topless and scantily clad, for what that's worth, who supposedly was abducted, though they're saying one of the abductors went shoe shopping with her in Italy where they were. Is that the new normal in Europe, in your opinion, or just a crazier world?
From the amount that I've read on the story, what I understand is she was sort of lured into Italy by a sort of fake advertisement for a photo shoot, I think, and she was sort of kidnapped there, like something from that Liam Neeson Taken movie.
Forgot about that.
Beyond that, I think I recently read that she had promised with her captor to sleep with him if he let him go. That's what one of the pieces I have read. I hadn't actually read yet that they went shoe shopping together. That's an interesting one. I guess the question that would raise to me, I guess, is was it either a case of like Stockholm syndrome, or I guess what is the likelihood that some of it to a degree could have been more of towards a hoax?
Who knows?
It's hard to say.
I mean, look, if you're captured, it's not unheard of to do something like that. One last thing I want to ask you about. Yeah. Did you have a chance to read the Daniel Greenfield piece on McMaster, which I found incredibly compelling and a must-read?
I read the piece by Aaron Bandler on the Daily Wire. You'll have to quickly give me a 2-point kind of summary of the...
No, let's hear about the Aaron Bandler piece. I don't know which one that is. I haven't seen it, but you got to promote your own company there, so all good.
Yeah, so Aaron, who always has wonderful stuff on the Daily Wire, he had a piece on McMaster, and he highlighted several points that, in contrast to Donald Trump's latest statements referring to the fact that everything is wonderful with McMaster, and I guess...
Speaking of Stockholm syndrome, apparently, yeah.
Speaking of Stockholm syndrome, McMaster has been really one of the, I guess, the shadier characters on the Trump admin from the perspective of us, of conservatives, because he has fired several people from the NSC, people who arguably shouldn't have, and at the same time, he's sort of been close with previous Obama staffers. There's like one or two individuals who were working to release documents that showed ties between previous, I think, Obama NSC officials and the Muslim Brotherhood, and those people were let go by McMaster.
Very disturbing.
Very disturbing, and at the same time, I have not seen any Democrats or people like Louis Mensch reporting that McMaster is a Russian spy or a KGB agent. So I think that also raises the flag as to why, literally every person from Barron Trump to Jeff Sessions, the previous Alabama senator, could possibly be a Russian KGB agent. But dear Lord, not McMaster. He has nothing to do with the Russians. So I am very interested to see where this goes. And
something very disturbing when the ADL and the Council on American Islamic Relations, a.k.a. CARE, are so eager to support McMaster. Anyhow, remind people where they can follow you, Harry. It's been great having you on.
The best place would be on Twitter at Harry1T6. And you can find my latest articles, which I promise there's a new one coming soon on thedailywire.com. And beyond that, there is my personal website, which is also, it's linked to my Twitter, so you can find it there, at Harry1T6. Thank you so much.
Harry, thanks for coming on.